Welcome to the Art Project. If you are new here, please subscribe. If you tap that little bell, you will get notifications for when I do other videos. And if you enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you got any questions or anything, you can leave them in the comments down below. And sometimes I have links in the description for things that you might be interested in. So be sure to read the description. What I'm doing right here is I am putting a 2-inch border around the front of a portfolio. I made the portfolio by taking a piece of 24 by 36 inch tag board and folding it in half. Now I'm going to start doing all sorts of collage stuff, and for this I'm using found material, just ephemera, stuff that's normally going to be thrown away, stuff that's interesting and part of the world that we live in today. Other really cool stuff to use is stuff that you find that's more vintage. And if you were looking at our information on Joshua Horkey, which is an amazing artist, and you should check him out, look him up, see some of his work. He used a lot of vintage materials, I think. At least that's what they look like. Not exactly sure 100% where he got them, but anyway, I happen to be drinking some Monster Rehabs, which is some delicious tea and lemonade energy drink. Not really heavy on the energy, but wonderful tea and lemonade. Anyway, I also had a supply of $500 bills from a Monopoly set and no Monopoly set to go with it, so I'm using those as well. They've got a great color and a great print on them. So just anything you can find that you can glue down that you think will look good together. This is not all 100% hodgepodge. I like the way some of these things look, and I like the way some of these things look together. So think about what it is you're doing as you're gluing this stuff down. I'm using various tricks to make sure that it fits within the border, and I am using a lot of stick glue to make sure it sticks down. I wanted to separate the top layer of this cardboard so that I didn't have to stick the entire thick piece of cardboard down, and it didn't want to come apart real easily. So I poured water over it and then spread it around, and eventually even spread that water, poured the water down into the edge so that it would soak in. And once you do that, it kind of loosens up the glue and it tears a whole lot easier. You're going to notice a little bit of dry area right here where I'm pulling this off. It did not soak through completely, but it actually soaked enough that it did loosen up the glue and made it easy to take apart. I then ripped those up so that it didn't have quite the straight edge, and then I cut it so that they would fit against the border. While that was drying, I started working on the stencil. In your sketchbook, you're going to create what you want your stencil to be. It doesn't have to be as creative, I guess, as mine. I don't know if creative is the right word there. As unique or different. I had this idea to do bones, stencils shaped like bones, and so that's what I started with here. But I've been doing this sort of thing for a while. You may have to, if you're a student, think longer and think harder about it to come up with something that you want to do. But like I said, it could just be plain basic block letters, but you have to cut them so that they're a stencil. And the thing that makes a stencil is that you can spray paint through it or paint through it, and it leaves some places covered and other places not covered. And there's some problems with stencils. There are white islands that if you cut around, they'll just fall away. There are peninsulas that tend to be floppy once you have cut the stencil out. And so you want to watch out for things like that. The white islands are the parts that would fall completely away after you cut around the letter. And the peninsulas, as you see right here, are the things that would be kind of floppy once you cut them, once you cut the stencil out. So there's a little, what I call a bridge that connects the larger area of the stencil to the white island or to the peninsula, so that they don't fall away or become too floppy. So once I got my design figured out, I decided to enlarge it onto this large piece of brown craft paper. This brown craft paper is only really good for one stencil unless you have really made sure that all your stencil parts, like the peninsulas and the islands, are uh, structured right and supported. I used a utility knife on top of a sheet of matte. A mat cutter or a cutting mat, and cut it all out. Once I had it cut out, I sprayed it. Now, you're going to notice that when I spray this, some of the pieces kind of flop up, like that middle part of the C or the middle part of the H. And you want to be careful about stuff like that. You get a lot of underspray. Once you have the stencil sprayed, you really can't use it for more than once because all of those little peninsulas and loose parts curl up. But then you want to add more stuff to it if you can. Usually spraying the stencil is not the last part. You do not have to go around it with white paint pen. It just happened to be what I had available, and I thought it would help differentiate it from the background. I then went around the whole edge with a fat Sharpie marker, and here I am marking off to do some stripes. I decided to put a kind of transparent stripe behind the letters. It would have been a lot easier if I'd done it first, but as you're working on the stencils, as you're working on the collage, it's really a matter of looking at something and trying to decide if it's going to add to it or take away as you go. And so sometimes you have to go back. This is acrylic gloss medium, which is basically clear acrylic paint. And it looks white, but when you spread it and paint it, and it dries, it becomes clear, and it seals the tape so that the color of paint doesn't bleed up under the tape. It's hard to tell in the first coat, but I painted a transparent orange, and then I decided to make another stripe. This stripe was going to be a brighter, whiter, more opaque stripe, but I put some of this clear acrylic on it to seal the tape again, and when I did, some of the paint came up, especially when I took a paper towel across it and tried to dry it out. And I liked the way it looked, kind of rough, and made it look a little bit vintage just in that little stripe area. And when I pulled the tape off, it actually tore some of the paper, which is totally okay. Anyway, I now have a portfolio, and I like the way it turned out. I added a few stickers to it when I was done, but that's pretty much it. Now it is your turn to go make some art. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, give it a thumbs up, and comment down below.